Thank God it's
Welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by the Match Series, the Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred Championships. The final round is at Monmouth Park, September 28th. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. We're glad to have you with us. Coming up, we're going to talk about that Jockey Club proposal to limit stud books. But first, let's start in Illinois, Ray. The Illinois Racing Board had a meeting this week to talk about next year's racing dates, but they tabled their decision, and it seemed to be targeted at Churchill Downs Incorporated, ownership of Arlington Park. Of course, they decided not to seek a casino license for Arlington after all these years of lobbying to get slots at racetracks, and the horsemen were very angry about that. The IRB seems to be putting their foot in the ground and saying, hold on, getting a license isn't a done deal. It's a privilege. So they're trying to send a message.
Yeah, the Illinois Racing Board, part of its mission is to maximize revenue for the state, to do what's in the best interest of the industry. They looked at this situation with Churchill Downs saying, we're not going to pursue a license for a casino at Arlington, as saying, wait a minute, that's not good for horse racing. It may be good for the Rivers Casino that Churchill Downs owns 11 or 12 miles away from the track, but it's not good for horse racing, and we want you to reconsider. So there's a 3-person committee that was appointed, including the former executive director of the Illinois Racing Board. They're going to meet with Churchill Downs officials, Arlington officials, over these next few days and come back next Tuesday, they hope, with a better proposal from Churchill Downs.
I mean, there is the possibility that if Churchill balks at this, and the IRB could say, we're not going to give you race dates at Arlington next year. So there will be no Arlington Million. And with Hawthorne building a casino, you could conceivably not have thoroughbred racing in Chicago in 2020.
Yeah, that's a very real possibility. And Churchill, when they said, we are not going to seek a casino at Arlington, made some statement about, well, maybe we'll take our license and move it somewhere else. One of the commissioners said that was preposterous. Arlington Park is, if not the best, one of the best racing facilities in the country. To see this go away in a couple of years, which could be as soon as next year, is just a tragedy. But on the other hand, you have to wonder, what are the people at Churchill Downs actually thinking? Are they looking at this property as a potential football stadium for the Chicago Bears? Are they looking at it as a potential housing development? After all, there's a commuter train that stops right at the door at Arlington Park, which is another reason that it would be a fantastic casino. So who knows what they are really thinking? They haven't revealed their hand at all.
They're trying to get a license for a casino in Waukegan, Illinois, and I know that the locals, there are other bidders involved that have stronger ties to that community. So I'm not sure they're going to get that license. And I don't know how that impacts their decision, maybe not at all, with Arlington. But certainly Churchill Downs Incorporated is primarily a casino company now, and they just seem to be at odds with horse racing all the time. And this is another example of that, unfortunately. Well, let's move on, Ray, and talk about the Jockey Club's proposal, possibility of limiting stud books to 140 mares. What do you think about this idea?
I support it. There are farms that say that this is against the free enterprise system, that this will hinder their ability to make money on stallions if they have to reduce the number of mares bred to 140, which is the current proposal. The Jockey Club said that they're considering this starting in 2021. There's a lot of farms that rely on horses breeding to more than 200 mares, but the reason given by the Jockey Club was the narrowing of the gene pool. As the foal crop has shrunk, more horses are being bred, more mares are being bred to fewer stallions, and that's a real concern. I think there's also an economic factor here too, and that is that the rich seem to get richer. The stallion farms that breed the most mares can generate the most revenue to go out and buy the next stallion prospect, spend more on it than others, and it really does limit the abilities of smaller farms to stand stallions.
Well, the Jockey Club, one of its missions is to protect the breed, and I think this is, you can look at it that way. People who are saying, well, it's a breach of, it's a restraint of trade, it's a breach of the free market. This isn't a free market. The Jockey Club makes rules and regulations over the breeding industry all the time. You can't name your horse a name with more than 18 letters, for example. That's a small example. They can reject any name they want. And it's just like any other sport. I mean, the NFL is not a free market. You have a salary cap. You have to abide by the financial limitations that are placed upon your team so that everyone has the same chance. And that's the whole idea behind that. I mean, other sports have gone in different directions, like baseball. And, for a long time, you had the Yankees winning every year because they had the biggest payroll. So, I mean, this is not the same. It's not a direct analogy because we don't have a league office or a commissioner, even though we should. But it's not a free market.
Yeah, actually, a breeder the other day suggested that maybe this is a test by the Jockey Club. If this goes through, if this wins a challenge in court, might they try something in a few years, like restrict who can be registered foals? For example, if a stallion raced on Lasix, maybe the Jockey Club will say, we're not going to allow stallions who raced on Lasix to breed mares and have foals registered. Germany did something similar to that, and it would be interesting to see if the Jockey Club does something along those lines to restrict drug use.
That's interesting. Artificial insemination is another one. It's not allowed. You can't do it. So there is control over the industry through the Jockey Club, and that's why they have the ability to make this decision. What do you think about it? Should the Jockey Club limit stallion books to 140 mares? We have a poll on our website. Share your thoughts with us. Finally, Ray, maximum security out of the Pennsylvania Derby. More bad luck for his connections, and we don't know whether he's going to come back this year or not. How do you think that's going to affect the 3-year-old picture when we're talking about who's going to end up champion?
Well, unlike last year when Justify was the clear champion off his Triple Crown sweep, we've got a race on our hands here because Maximum Security is the leader, but Code of Honor is going next week in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. If he goes in the Breeders' Cup, he could certainly have a big chance for the year-end championship. Omaha Beach is coming back. It's not a Grade 1 race, but I think it's a prep for Grade 1. He could be a serious contender at year's end, and who knows? It's going to be decided on the racetrack. I don't think that we have a champion decided right now.
I think War of Will also has a possibility here because he's going in the Pennsylvania Derby. He won the Preakness, and then he'll probably go in the Classic. If he were to run the table, I think you'd have to strongly consider him as 3-year-old champion. But these are all ifs. I hope that everyone stays healthy and we have some good races down the stretch. It would be nice because we've had some bad breaks throughout the year. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show, presented by the Match Series. Don't forget the final round is September 28th at Monmouth. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.